All right, rules of acquisition number 8, Christianity. Now, you can't, how can I say this? Forget about the fourth Adam's realm if you have been thumbing your nose at the second Adam's realm, okay? You can forget about the fourth Adam's realm if you have been disrespectful to the second Adam's realm. And for the most part, unificationists have been disrespectful to, now these are loaded words, Jesus and the New Testament. Those two terms are loaded. And you think you know what I mean when I refer to those two things, Jesus and the New Testament. And I'm going to speak loosely. Generally, if you're a Mooney, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm saying this by living with you for 25 years. You guys are not Christian, okay? You have to become Christian in order to populate in an active way, not just through lip service, the fourth Adam's realm, okay? The New Testament and or from now on, if I mention Jesus, the New Testament, or let's say Christianity or growth stage, I mean the same thing. And I think I should contract them all into one topic, okay? When I say growth stage issues, that's the term I'm going to use, growth stage issues. I mean lessons from Jesus, lessons from the 2,000-year period from Jesus to True Father. I mean, okay, growth stage issues. Growth stage issues are issues related to coming into full knowledge of the value of human beings, or what you would call absolute respect. That means viewing human beings or respecting human beings from the position of the absolute being, which is God, right? So let's call it absolute respect. The course of life, the growth stage is the course of life to acquire absolute respect. This incorporates reasons why you would try to love enemy, so forth and so on. All right. All the challenges related to maintaining a behavior consistent with absolute respect. If you absolutely respect human beings, your behavior would be like this, like this, like this. The growth stage is to practice those behaviors. Practice loving, practice forgiving, practice trusting, practice sacrificing. And this is really what I'm getting. I told you in rule of acquisition number 6 that critical extrapolation is important, and owning your individual mind and pulling the revelation into your life and times. I told you that. Then the second thing after that was nature renders judgment. In other words, why do you go out, sink or sail, pass or fail? You know you might not get the results that you want, but why is it okay? Because nature renders judgment, and that's the nature of trial and error in free market. Okay. And so instead of having a prejudgment about members going off on their own projects, we are friendly towards the space, the experimental nature of settlement, or making attempts at settlement, making attempts at bringing God's mind to our outer world, right? So what's number 8 about? Number 8 is about the fact that we are all going to be scattered and isolated unless we see God in one another. So rule of acquisition number 8 is we must be Christian. We must have the fruits of the growth stage. We must see God in one another and act that way. Because at any given time, among us as believers, 15% of us are going to have some light bulb moment and idea, okay? And if the able figure doesn't approve of the idea, that shouldn't be a make or break. In fact, why should anybody stop to tell a so-called able figure in an era where there's no restoration, where the Cain Abel issue is, the hoop that must be jumped through? Another way to look at this is the way the church structured it is there was only one person that was given absolute respect, and that was the able figure. We treated the able figure like he's the representative of God, but we didn't treat one another like we were representatives of God. If we stay stuck in that mentality, we will not help each other. We'll all be isolated in our experiments. And that is very likely to make our experiments unsuccessful. Okay? So at any given time, let's say 15% of us is making an attempt. Then the 85% shouldn't sit idly by and call themselves good Christians, or call themselves settlement, where they care about whether or not some of these experiments actually pan out and become a substantial blessing to the world, right? When somebody's attempting something, since that's your brother or sister, you should have a sense of ownership over their project, hoping that their project pans out the way that the initiator is hoping for. Okay? But if you feel disinvited, or you don't feel the burden of responsibility to care or to help, you're not ready for the settlement age. And that's rule of acquisition number 8. Settlement age requires the Christian foundation. And I do not mean that we have Christian churches behind us as institutions. I do not mean that. I mean that our own brothers and sisters in the movement treat us like God is in there. That means they treat our calling, or they treat that Holy Spirit message that we got, as though God might actually be there, and have available to them a sense of volunteerism wherever, these project ideas are popping up. Without that, I think that the experiment space will yield a greater degree of failures than necessary, because some people will have had a good idea but not enough hands on deck to manifest the best results. Okay? Those best results are supposed to be brought back to the center of the community, where we cross-fertilize one another with our best results. Cream rises to the top as a collective community, as tribal messiahs, and so forth and so on. So that's it. Rule of acquisition number 8. We cannot go forward without true Christianity.